All right, everyone, we have to talk about the Golden Dome project. Estimates usually are above 100 billion to develop such a system. The US already has a strategic air defense system anyway, but the idea is to upgrade it to be similar to Israel's Iron Dome. There's a reason why Golden Dome was the term, by the way, used for this. Big, beautiful dome. Yeah, nothing can get past it. That's basically Donald Trump's way of branding. I support the basic concept, but it may not be the most pragmatic. See, here's the problem. If you were to create a Golden Dome system around various metropolitan areas of large size, that would make a little bit more sense. It seems like Donald Trump wants to create a system that is strategic within every region within the United States. I think it'll cost more than the 175 billion that it would be earmarked for. Now, you can dip into discretionary spending. The problem is diverting those funds successfully will require a court case. Everything that Donald Trump does from this day forward should be understood to be immediately injuncted by some court. Somebody will file a suit, some activistic court will injunct him. So trying to grab up discretionary spending in order to actually create such a system might be a little bit more on the difficult side. Now, the idea of it is fundamentally good, but you run into a problem. This is a problem that Israel has grappled with, by the way. Sometimes your enemy creates a bunch of duds, and I've warned of this for years, and this is probably what will happen in World War III. Imagine that a nation simply develops thousands and thousands of duds, dud scuds, you could call them, sort of a parlance, I suppose, and they don't actually have really a payload at all. They're filled with, sand or something like that. But the missile system still intercepts them. Eventually, you run out of munitions. Now, the problem is that you can fire thousands and thousands of rockets into an enemy target. Only a few of them actually have a payload at all, but the system can't differentiate between which ones are which. It's incapable of understanding which rockets actually have the payload. And so some of them manage to get through. In a nuclear war scenario, this would probably be the main problem. It's like if the United States were to take a bunch of Minuteman missiles and just load them with conventional explosives. They're not nukes or anything like that. They'll go off with a bang, but they're a lot cheaper. And fired, 10 times as many missiles at a target. That would be a little bit of a problem for the air defense and the anti-missile defense of any foreign nation. Russia could do the same. China could do the same. Also, now we've got drones. Some of them, in theory, you could strap a small nuke to them and destroy a military base or something like that. So while the Golden Dome system, on paper, it makes sense. It is sensible. It is also reasonable. It's also potentially useful. It is capable of being overwhelmed. The sad fact is that there is no such thing as a competent missile defense system, effectively, if the enemy chooses to make a bunch of dud scuds. And this has happened actually before. We've seen instances of this with Israel v. Palestine, for example. The Palestinians have taken effectively what's nothing more than a metal tube. They put a rocket engine on it, fire it over, it lands. It doesn't really do much damage, it just sort of plunges into the ground. But the Iron Dome system will attempt to intercept it. Now, if it does, you've lost, what is it, $100,000 or something like that? Over a bottle rocket that costs 50 bucks basically to make. I mean, it's an unguided rocket, short range. We would be dealing with something a little bit different. In order to attack the United States, unless you wandered across Yakutsk into Alaska or something like that, the Bering Land Bridge as it used to be, unless you do that, you're going to have a naval assault, possibly partly air-based, with missiles and so forth attendant. it would be a little bit more difficult to defend an area the size of the United States, which is one of the largest countries in the world, as opposed to a very, very small, very compact country, which can have one singular missile defense system and there's really no problem. The number of anti-missile outposts you would need to make would be formidable. It'd be in the probably in the hundreds, actually. It would be mostly along the coasts and along the borders. But then you've got another problem. What if these stations get infiltrated by people pouring across the border in a future administration and they decide to just grab up the missiles and go or something like that? That scenario could actually happen. So while I'm in favor of the Golden Dome program. Don't get me wrong. I think that Trump is right to create a singular missile defense system, make it more cohesive, make it upgraded in general. I support that, and I don't care if it costs $175 billion. This is where I differentiate myself from ANCAPs and so forth. You do have to have a centralized capability of striking back at an opponent, because the militia alone, unless you are giving me a couple of scuds or something like that, preferably not dud scuds, it's going to be very, very difficult for me to fend off the enemy as a member of the militia, which we all are if you're an adult. That being said, you, how useful is it going to be? I agree with upgrading our anti-missile defense system, but the cost is going to be large. The public will balk at it. That's the first problem. The first problem is simply political pragmatism. They'll balk at it. And then, are you actually going to use it? And then third, would it actually be effective? I believe that it would be reasonably effective, but only reasonably. So it's within reason. It's not that it's some sort of catch-all effect that you have because, those systems can get overwhelmed as a result of what I just discussed. It would be actually relatively easy to do so. In fact, in a nuclear war, what I would suspect is that an intelligent nation would fire 9 to 1 non-nuclear weapons at all. That is, that you create a bunch of, well, not dud missiles, but just with conventional explosives, and fire them at the same targets that you're firing the nukes at. In order to intercept them, you have to then determine which ones are nukes, and you have 15 minutes to do it. That's going to be a little bit difficult now, isn't it? So the Golden Dome project in and of itself is a good idea. Will Congress fund it? I don't know. I would suspect that they'll vote no. With the masses of the world and so forth, I would suspect that they would down it. They would down it just like a missile getting downed by the Golden Dome itself. How ironic. That's about all. Peace out.